Welcome back to Lean and Define. This is Mozzie, NASM certified personal trainer. Okay, so I'm back out on the beach today at a slightly different angle than normal, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So this video, it's about like what do you do when you miss a few weeks um, in terms of your progress. Let's say you just started going to the gym again and you had this goal, you want to lose 20 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever amount of weight you're trying to lose. And so you go back to the beach. So you go and you start going, and let's say you make some progress. Maybe you go for a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever, but then maybe some things come up in your life, and you don't have the time, and you don't have the time to go to the gym. You don't have the time to work out. You don't have the time to do that. Uh, and this could be many things. It could be just different responsibilities in your life, and that is something that um, you don't want to completely like derail your goals. Okay, so the question is like, well, what do you do when something like that happens, or how do you handle that? So, well, what one important concept of that is here is I would say uh, keep yourself active on some level, even if it's just keep yourself moving throughout the day, getting your steps in. Maybe make some goal like 10,000 steps a day or something like that, but just something that keeps you active so you don't go into like a sedentary lifestyle now on top of everything else. So that's one important thing I would say that you should try to do. Another thing I would say is um, you need to dial. More than likely, you should be dialing back on your eating a little bit, at least, if not more so than that, depending on how active you continue to stay. Um, because one thing that I've noticed, and this is me as a trainer, somebody who works in a gym setting, I've seen where people disappear for a few months from the gym. You don't see them, and then usually when they come back, and this is assuming they weren't going to another gym, but most of the time when I don't see people for a few months, they haven't been going to any gym. And so what happens is they come back and they've gained oftentimes considerable amounts of weight. Sometimes 15 pounds, 20 pounds, 25 pounds. And I'm talking about these were like regular gym goers, like people who were there on a very consistent basis. Um, and I even with that, and I think what happens oftentimes is when people stop coming to the gym, but they eat just as if they still were. And so what's the problem with that? The problem is your calorie intake is not lining up with your calorie expenditure. You're eating like somebody who's far more active than they are in that situation. And so you end up in a calorie surplus. And we know what happens in a calorie surplus. You gain body fat. So that's something uh, that that should be kept in mind when people do take a break. So you could not make it too complicated and just dial back on your eating and see what happens. Another option is you can pull up a calorie calculator online and you can recalculate what your maintenance calories are. So normally maintenance calories, they actually ask you what your activity level is, or at least the one that I've used asks about activity level. So you can go in there and readjust that to basically um, uh, to recalculate it based on how active you are now or how inactive you are or sedentary or whatever. So you can do that, and then that'll give you a new number to work off of temporarily until you're able to get back on track. Then another important key here is you don't want to start like um, basically being like, okay, I'm a failure. I tried to do this. I've tried to do this in the past. It never worked. I'm never going to get in shape. Forget about all of it. And this kind of thing can pop up. Sometimes it may even happen to someone. Maybe they've missed like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and now they feel like a total failure. I think that's the wrong mentality. I think that's something that you need to be able to just push through. Just be like, okay, yeah, things came up. Um, my work got really busy, or I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on with the family, or whatever it is, and um, note the fact that hey, I was consistent for a period of time. This is happening now, but don't let that totally take you off track. Maybe even be able to note the progress that you've made so far, and just take note of that as well. And don't self sabotage as a result of all this. And then kind of the last thing um, that I'm thinking of is actually very similar to that, but it's the idea of um, don't beat yourself up, but have a plan in mind as far as getting back on track. Because one thing that can happen sometimes is, so people take, let's say they realize like, oh, I've got a lot of family stuff going on. I'm probably not going to go to the gym the next 3 weeks. Um, so they basically take that 3 weeks, but then they get used to not exercising. They get used to being inactive or less active or whatever. And then it becomes very easy to keep pushing the can down the road. Before you know it, 3 weeks turns into maybe 3 months or whatever. So I think there should still be this idea that, yeah, I'm taking care of these things, but I do have this goal of being back in the gym. Um, that should still be on your mind, so you're not like completely like just forgetting everything. And now, who knows? You may not even go back to the gym this within a year, and you just took some time off. So that's the other thing here that I'm thinking of as like, hey, um, you need to be there should be a plan of when to get back. You could maybe you can even jot that down in your phone, your calendar, somewhere, so that that's still on your mind, and that you have a plan in mind for when you want to go back. And ideally, it should be whenever whatever you're doing right now is settled down. Oh, and there's one more thing that I forgot, but I say even with all this going on, like I mentioned, like staying active, increasing your step counts, try to figure out one way you could still do resistance training, like at least one day a week. If there's some time you can like work your way in and get into the gym, or if you're able to do some kind of at-home workout once a week, just to continue that habit on some level instead of completely falling off. And maybe with that one day a week might be enough to mostly maintain at least the resistance training progress you've made, so you're not completely falling off. Outside of that, just staying active. That like I said earlier, like dialing back on your calories. These things are really important, so you're not losing like your total framework. You're still mindful of your diet, of your. You're still aware of your eating. You're still aware. You're still moving, and you're still resistance training on some level. I think during this period where you've got a lot going on. So, with that said, this is Mozzie here at Lean and Define. Take care and stay active.